On today's episode of Locked On NHL, the Minnesota Wild have playoff aspirations, but do they have an extension for Kirill?
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. We are your team each and every day, and we are also your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is going to take a look at three teams that have big playoff aspirations this year. We'll talk about the St. Louis Blues and if they are a team that can make more of a run at a top spot in the division, or if they are destined to be in the wild card fight. We'll talk about the Minnesota Wild. Can they contend for a top spot in the Central Division? And we'll talk about the Ottawa Senators, who made the playoffs last year for the first time in a long time. What's next for the Sens? My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, joined by JD Young of Locked On Sharks. And JD, we start with our favorite team, the St. Louis Blues, who rode an impeccable winning streak to close out the season to a wild card spot. They went toe-to-toe against the Winnipeg Jets in the first round, and they came 1.7 seconds away from advancing to round two, but they couldn't get it done. And now the Blues are in position to try to one-up their success from this past season. So can they do it? Can the Blues take another step, or is this just kind of a wild card hopeful for the upcoming season?
I feel like this is a wild card hopeful type of team, right? And you kind of look at what they did this offseason, a team that did not have a lot of cap space going into the offseason, right? And so had to work around the fringes. And I'll give them credit. They were able to kind of move around and still be somewhat aggressive with the limited resources they have. They shed Nick Leddy, who the Sharks claimed off of waivers. We know Torrey Krug's career is probably done. They trade for Logan Mailloux, to try to help inject some youth into the blue line, which has been, I think a big problem for them over the last couple seasons, just how old that blue line is for them. But like they signed Pius Suter, who I think is a really solid third line center, and I think will be a really big piece to their penalty kill. But, I think the overhanging question with this team is the whole Jordan Kyrou rumors. And there's rumors that he might be available, that he might be traded. How substantial are they? Who knows? But I don't think people are just making up these rumors just to make up these rumors here. But I don't know, the path for this team to get better. It's just how do you talk yourself into this team kind of getting better? What additions or subtractions are you looking at as this is a way for this team to get better? Because I feel like they got into the playoffs because they beat up on a bunch of bad teams down the stretch. And they had some nice wins mixed in there as well, but they played a lot of the league's basement at the end of the season. Were able to string together a bunch of wins, which credit to them. Again, you have to win the games that are in front of you. And like you said, they pushed to the Winnipeg Jets until game 7, 1.7 seconds away or whatever. But I don't know. I'm unless Cam Fowler just turns into Erik Karlsson from 23-24 San Jose Sharks type of performance or something like that. Or 22-23 Sharks, but I'm worried about this team's ceiling and how good they can actually be.
Well, I think the defense will be what holds them back. It's a collection of guys. I just really can't envision how they all fit together.
Yeah.
And I know Cam Fowler had the great, like the fantastic offensive season for the Blues this past year once he was acquired. I think if you ask the Blues, this is something, of course, they would never say in public. I think they would prefer, we'll take less points from him if we can get a little better defense. We'll take less points from all of the blue line guys if we can get a little better defense than we have been getting over the last couple of years. As good as Jordan Binnington has been, it kind of feels like they have left him on an island at multiple different opportunities. So, if they can get some solid play, just consistent play from that blue line, from that decor, I think they could be a team that maybe makes a little noise. But if we see a lot of what we saw last year, that is a wild card team at best, in my opinion.
And plus, I mean, we've talked, about the Central Division. It's a gauntlet in the Central, right? Where you have the Avs, you have the Stars, you have the Jets, you have the Wild. Like, you have a team like the Mammoth who are going to be making a push, and are getting better, like actively getting better. And this does kind of feel like your stagnant team, right? Like, where, a lot of teams got better, a lot of teams got worse, et cetera. Like, or there's room for growth for some of these teams, right? It's just, I don't know. Like, I think this team's got a very high floor. Like, I don't see this team cratering and being like one of the 10 worst teams or anything like that in the NHL. Yeah. And I think they're going to be firmly in the mix for a wild card spot. But again, it's a very high floor, low ceiling team to me, where, they're probably going to be in a wild card spot. Maybe they get the third spot in the Central, but I think that would I think a lot of teams have to fall off. But again, like, they're probably going to play pretty solid every night, but there's not a lot of like high-end juice, I guess, would be my unless you think a guy like Kyrou or Robert Thomas, one of those just goes like supernova this season, which it's a possibility, but I think we are kind of know what those guys are.
It's funny, like, just looking at their books, it is pretty evident that this is the year that they want to contend. Like, this is the year that they want to be really pushing heavily towards not just a playoff spot, but a second round, a third round appearance, maybe even the Stanley Cup final if 8 teams in front of them have things go horribly wrong. Because they've got obviously their top guys signed, but basically their entire bottom 6 is off the books next year. And you've got some pieces that are going to need new deals. Dylan Holloway, Jimmy Snuggerud will be 1 year away from a new deal at that point. It feels like they're giving this roster one more go. And if things work out, then they'll make some efforts to try to keep people around. If it doesn't, then I think we're going to see this Blues team take on a little bit of a different shape come 2026, 2027.
But I mean, they do have for a team that's been competitive, they do have like a pretty solid prospect pool. It's not like, like you see teams that are like right as soon as they start to get competitive, their prospect pool falls off. Like, this team has done a good job of kind of going through this transition of, we're going to be competitive, but we're still doing a good job of kind of building up our prospect pool. And you're going to have guys, I think, start to contribute here really soon. A guy like Otto Stenberg or Dalibor Dvorsky could be making their NHL debuts here the next year or so, and then start to be kind of impactful players there. Adam Yurchik, who they drafted, is coming off a devastating knee injury, but kind of feels like a steal when they drafted him. Like, he's, I think, a big wild card for them to if he hits, like, he's a guy who's going to hit for them. And then, like this. So I hate to give the Blues any credit. I think they kind of navigated this pretty well of like, we have some guys who we think have some juice with our prospects, and they should start to kind of integrate as we have to continue to pay some of our bigger name players. And we want to kind of add some players, and to try to, fill out our bottom 6 or fill out our middle 6. So I need to go take a shower after giving the Blues that much praise and credit. So cut me out. You got the wild one by yourself, right, buddy?
They're gonna need to have a few people take some sizable leaps forward in order for them to jump into the top 3 conversation. As it currently stands, I mean, put them in the wild card conversation, and that's about as far as I'm willing to go.
It's fair.
Well, we'll move from the St. Louis Blues, of course, to the Minnesota Wild, who have had absolutely nothing eventful going on over the last 48 hours. Not a thing. Not a single thing of note has happened with the Minnesota Wild. Nothing related to contracts, nothing that I've talked about almost exclusively for the last month. Nothing. So we're not going to talk about anything related to contracts as we continue today's episode of Locked On NHL after this. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Minnesota Vikings over-under was 8.5 coming into the season. There's still time for you to take the under. So head to FanDuel right now to do just that. And if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On NHL. Once again, we are your team each and every day. We thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen each and every day as well. JD, we're going to talk about the Minnesota Wild right now. I am muting the following words before we get started. Kirill Kaprizov, contract extension, Bill Guerin, 16 million, 128 million, 8 years. I'm muting all of those words. Go right ahead.
So the Wild have a Russian star that is in need of more money for a long period of time. I think I navigated that pretty well. No, we'll get to Kaprizov here in a second, because I mean, like, that is the thing that hangs over this whole thing. Because if Kaprizov, like, if he just says, like, I don't want to be here anymore, like, you're basically looking at a soft reset for the Wild, and which, you know, but I assume Kaprizov's going to get signed. I assume this is just I think he just wants to be the guy to reset the market. And I think that's fair, especially when your, ownership and GM basically come out and say, we'll do whatever it takes to keep Kaprizov here. You kind of lose all your leverage. So assuming he gets signed, I think he will sign for some ridiculous contract. He'll be happy. The Wild will be happy. And I think this Wild team will be very good this year, to be honest. Like, I'm very bullish on this Wild team. I think they are a legitimate dark horse candidate to be a Stanley Cup contender this year, which would be, for a team that hasn't gotten out of the first round in God knows how long.
10 years.
I don't even, is that true or false?
Yeah, it's true. The last time they won a series was 2014.
There you go. So 11 years now. But you have a lot, this team is a very good mix of young, exciting players like Marco Rossi and Matt Boldy, and Kirill Kaprizov. I guess Kaprizov's, not young anymore, but with veteran players as well. You look at the defense, I think this defense is rock solid, especially with guys like Brock Faber, and you're going to have Zeke William in the mix here. Philip Gustafson was returned to form last year. I think this team has, and you have star power in Kirill Kaprizov, who was the legitimate MVP of the league before he got hurt last year. And you have a feeling at some point Kaprizov's just going to have that supernova season. Why not us, Seth? Why not us for the Wild this year? Why can't it be the Wild's turn to have something nice? And yes, I know Minnesota sports is the reason why the Wild can't have anything nice, but this team has everything there for them. And they have plenty of assets if they want to be aggressive at the trade deadline. They have a great prospect pool. They have they have their first round pick for the next couple of seasons. Like, this team could be extremely aggressive with $20 million in projected deadline cap space. Why not the Wild this year?
Well, it needs to be the Wild this year. Like, I'll flip the question right back at you. Obviously, the negotiations currently ongoing with Kirill Kaprizov hinge on them being competitive, and not just being competitive. I've talked about it on Locked on Wild quite a bit. You got to go from a playoff caliber team to a cup contender. It's not easy, but you have to make that leap between the two. And I think we saw the Minnesota Wild, as much as everybody wants to just kind of erase this past season, through the first couple months of the season, they were that. This
team was so good at the beginning of the year, like extremely good at the year when Kaprizov was healthy and he was driving the bus.
Kirill Kaprizov was healthy. Matt Boldy was on pace for a 50-50 season. Like, they were getting good offense. They were getting great goaltending and great defense. And it all fell apart. And if the Wild are going to keep Kirill Kaprizov around and stay true to their word and build a legitimate contender around him, they need the health, but they also need like a third option to emerge consistently. Marco Rossi is looking like he could be that guy, but they need a third option to emerge and just be that night in, night out. If they can do that, if particularly on the second line right wing spot, that has been an issue since I took over as host. They can fill that spot. That's going to go a long way. They really need just a second line that can keep up with the first line. And if they get that, it feels like that's going to be what elevates them to this upper echelon. They've got really good defense. I know the defense has already taken a hit with Jonas Brodin out for the first couple weeks of the season. They've got great defense. They got good goaltending, but it feels like they finally have the depth that can plug holes this year with the prospect pool. And if it all just can line up a little bit, like, I don't need 99%. I need like 55 or 60. If we can get 55 or 60% lined up on all this, then I think they can have that great season that they've been looking for, that Kirill has been asking for. I think they can have that, and I think that will be what he needs to see in order to stay.
I mean, like, with the Kaprizov, like, to be fair, they were having that season last year, and then Kaprizov got hurt. So it's not like Guerin didn't do, like this team, like we talked about, was one of the best. They were keeping pace with the Jets and like running down the Jets at one point, I know, until Kaprizov got hurt. So, and we know Bill Guerin, like, Guerin can be aggressive when he wants to be. And, I think he's made some really smart moves. You look at the Kevin Fiala trade, like, he knew what Kevin Fiala's value was. He made a great move there. And Brock Faber is by far the better player between Fiala and Fiala and Faber. Like, I think if they can be smart at the trade deadline, try to find some more scoring for your second line there. Like you said, they have picks, they have players, they have assets, they have cap space, because even if you sign Kaprizov for this season, it's not going to kick in until next year anyway. Like, his cap is at $9 million right now. And they're going to have to, they'll probably have to go through a little bit of a cap crunch here once they do sign Kaprizov too. But, like, they still have plenty of cap space going into next year. And the way the cap's going up over the next couple of years, 18 or whatever $1 million he signs for, it might be sticker shock at now, but that's just going to be the new NHL. And I just think Kaprizov's going to be the guy that resets the market. And then somebody else will come along and top that. And it's just like quarterback contracts in the NFL, right? You have a little bit of a sticker shock when you see them. And then after a couple seasons, when everybody starts to sign those deals, it all gets reset, right? The NFL went through this recently with wide receivers, right? They were all making, under 30 million. And then Justin Jefferson signs a new deal. And now everybody's coming in under Justin. It's going to be the same exact thing, except for Kaprizov is going to be the guy to do it. And you know what? Like, good for him. Like, he is that important to the Wild. And he takes the Wild from a Blues type of wild card situation to a legitimate dark horse contender for the Stanley Cup. So that's how important he is to the Wild.
I like it.
You like it, which means everything's crashing down this year because the Wild
light it all on fire. The season's over. Fire the general manager. Fire the coach,
team.
Remove the team from the owner. Fold the franchise.
How great is Kaprizov going to look on Celebrity's wing? It's going to be sick.
He's going to New York. I have inside sources that have already told me that. And by inside sources, I mean people that have sent me DMs. # trust me, bro.
Trust me, bro, right here. 100%. But
other shows in the Minnesota area that are saying that, which is cool.
I think, like I said, I think he gets signed. I think it'll be one happy marriage. It's part of negotiating, especially with it like a record-setting deal like this. There's going to be some ugly spots, but it'll be fine. Kaprizov is going to be a Minnesota Wild for a while. So
he's going to be a Wild for a while.
A wild.
Yeah, you can attest behind closed doors. People don't see what happens before we hit record. I haven't smiled in 6 months because of this. It'll just be nice. It'll just be nice to be able to be happy again.
Just be nice to win one every once in a while.
It's just nice to win one. Speaking of win one, the Ottawa Senators had a nifty little season this past year. They got back to the postseason. It appears as though they have their goalie, the one that they needed to win a postseason series. We'll talk about what comes next for the Sens as we continue today's episode of Locked On NHL after this.
You just realized your business need to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs. Put your post at the top of the page and then help you reach the right candidates faster. If you're in a spot where you need to hire like yesterday, maybe if you're Bill Guerin and you need to find a new star left winger, the pressure's on. Every day without the right person is a setback, and that's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need.
Final segment of today's episode of Locked On NHL. Any more wisecracks about the Wild, and I'll use Indeed to find a new.
I'm just picturing like a GM, like, man, I need a new winger. Let me pop up the old Indeed here. And see
what positions are you looking to fill? Left wing.
Puck moving right-handed defenseman. Qualifications must be 6'4".
Must be 6'4", 240 pounds.
Yes, 100%.
Let's talk about the Ottawa Senators, Ottawa Senators had a crazy, eventful last offseason. New owner.
Yep.
New coach.
Yep.
They found their goalie, it seems like.
Yep.
And they got to the postseason for the first time in ever. Now, they did end up losing in the first round against the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it did really feel like a building block season for the Ottawa Senators. So the big question for Ottawa is, what do they need? What do they need in order to take the next step, in order to go that one rung up the ladder further, getting a series to Game 7 or even winning it next season? What is a big need? What are the big needs for the Senators?
Honestly, like, it kind of just feels like internal growth, right? Because I mean, you look at like so many of their players, like their core is like all these guys who are 25 and under, Stützle, Brady, Tkachuk, Dylan Cousins, who they traded for at the deadline last year, Jake Sanderson is 23. Like, I think for like their player, it's just getting that experience. And now, okay, like you made it to the playoffs. You saw how hard it is, right? Now, teams aren't going to take you lightly this year. Like that you're, a playoff team I think for them is just kind of going through that again this year. And now that you've kind of gone through it once, okay, like going through the process again. And kind of knowing the expectations and knowing what a playoff battle is like and knowing what it's like to get to the playoffs. So I do feel like this is a team that, like, especially with their young players, where some of them I don't feel like have kind of hit their ceilings quite yet. Like this is a team that could, kind of just naturally take that next step. And again, another team that's, they don't have their first round pick in the 2026 draft, but they do have plenty of deadline cap space this year, with like 16 million projected right now. I know their prospect pool is pretty emptied out right now, with the exception of like Carter Yakimchuk. But their prospect pool is pretty kind of like tapped out at the moment, as all these guys have now kind of graduated to NHL players. So, but I mean, this team can still be aggressive because they do have a lot of flexibility with their young players. So if they feel like they did last year, right, where I think that was a big move, trading for Cousins and giving up Josh Norris, who kind of felt like he was going to be a big piece of you. Like that's a pretty gutsy move. So like it's the East is going to be super competitive, right? And you're going to have to deal with the likes of Montreal and Toronto again this year. And we know Montreal is going to continue to take some steps here, but I think this team now, like after kind of getting battle hardened from last year, and I think Tkachuk in the Four Nations, that was a big moment for him to kind of come out and show like I'm ready to kind of be this guy and kind of lead this team and lead a playoff team. Yeah, I think this team could be, knocking on the second round this year. It's kind of that natural step and that natural progression, right?
Yeah, I equate it to this, and I'm going to use one, even though somebody on Locked On Wild said, please stop using analogies. They're terrible.
I like your analogies.
I equate this to somebody showing up to a fancy restaurant and thinking maybe they can get in without a reservation. And they get there and it's like, no, sorry, we're full. And you kind of look inside and you see, boy, these are nice tables. Everybody's dressed real fancy. This is a party. Yep. This is something that I want to be.
You kind of show up like a little disheveled, like you're the button, you're a little wrinkly. Maybe you got, like you're not wearing the right shoes and stuff, like trying to kind of sneak it. Yeah.
But the next time it comes time to potentially put yourself in that situation, the next time you get a reservation and you go in and you sit down and you're like, yeah, it turns out I belong here. I fit right in. That feels like kind of the next step for this Senators team, is just, now that you have gotten that taste again of what it takes to get to the postseason, now get back there and do it again. I mean, it's hard not to like the mix that they have. It's hard not to like the front office that they have. It feels like they really have a lot of their ducks in a row. And now it's just a matter of like not only making like some sort of a big deadline move, but just reinforcing all the work that these guys have put in. Like the Brady Tkachuks, all the time that they've put in trying to get to this point, getting to the deadline, being in position to make a big move so that the front office can say, hey guys, we believe in what you're doing. We've bought in. Here's some help.
Yeah, I'm like looking at like where on the roster do they need help? I guess, I mean, it's probably middle six scoring maybe. But I think you're hoping for a guy like Fabian Zetterlund, who they acquired at the deadline last year from the Sharks. Zetterlund didn't really do too much, and that exact same thing happened when he went to San Jose. Like, didn't show much during the trade deadline, but then the next year, like, he was a 20-goal scorer, and maybe they can kind of integrate Zetterlund a little bit better here. But I mean, you saw, as long as Ullmark stays healthy, like that's a big thing. But for them to kind of go where they want to go. But yeah, I mean, this roster, they've been building this roster for a very, very long time. They've gotten, they've nailed some of their draft picks. They've blown their fair share of draft picks as well. But it looks like things are starting to kind of, like we said, they made the playoffs last year. It feels like now it's time to kind of start to push and start to kind of hit that contender stage. And as you mentioned earlier, right, the hardest thing it is to go from a playoff team to look at Stanley Cup contender here. Is this the year, though? Is this the year that the Sens could be that type of, like, a team that nobody's talking about as a potential Stanley Cup team?
Yeah, I mean, this is as good a time as any for them to do it. And
the Tkachuk playoff series would, oh my god,
would feed families.
Yes. Just make it 15 games. I don't care. Nobody survives.
That would power the entire Eastern Coast just off of the playoff intensity from the Tkachuk family themselves.
Does Keith, I'm curious. Like, Keith seems like a pretty stylish guy. Does he do the half sweaters where like you see sometimes with parents where they have multiple kids and playing for different, where it's like one side would be the Sens, one side's the Panthers? Does he do the split jersey?
If it were me, I would just do what Rob Lowe did, and I would just wear the NHL logo.
NHL logo.
Yeah, I can't show any favoritism here, so I'm just going to support the league.
We know Matthew's the favorite, though.
No, clearly. Yeah. He's the oldest, isn't he? Or no, he's the youngest.
Yeah. Matthew's older. Brady just turned 25. Matthew's, yeah. I know. Brady Tkachuk's only 25. It feels like he's been in the league for 20 years.
He looks 40.
He looks like when they show those black and white videos of hockey players from the 60s and 70s. You could easily put Brady Tkachuk in there and nobody would tell the difference. So yeah.
Here's this old hockey player from the 80s that chain smoked cigarettes.
It's just Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah, it's just a photo of Brady Tkachuk just smiling at the camera. It's like,
yep.
Well, it's going to be real interesting to see what the Senators team has, because it does really feel like they have put some building blocks together. If they can just sustain it, if they can just take it one step further, maybe they can do what the Wild and the Blues are hoping to do. Well, maybe not so much the Blues, but the Wild definitely.
Build a Cam Fowler statue? Oh, wait.
I've already begun that, sir. That process is well underway.
It is the worst GoFundMe in history with 2 donations.
2 donations by Ryan Suter. Thanks for keeping me upright this year. That's our show for today. Thank you, as always, for joining this edition of Locked On NHL. Again, a reminder, you can follow along with the show all week long. We have different panelists each day taking you through the biggest stories around the NHL. So make sure to tune in so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.